And welcome back. We have a special guest in the studio, Dr. Steven Stitteroff. He's a psychologist and author of the very brand new book that just came out, The 9 Pillars of Resilience.
Right.
Thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So you're a long-time psychologist, and you've been working in this field for a long time. What prompted you to write this book?
We are living in a time of unbelievable amounts of stress in people's lives, complexity, more things happening, more things triggering our stress response. I wanted to create a model of resilience, a model of how to live optimally given all the stresses in our lives, with the goal of being as healthy as possible, as long as possible.
So why do you think so many people have so much trouble, and it can go over a lifetime, of just managing stress?
Well, one of the reasons is that stress is not just bad. In fact, many of us seek out stress because if you think about all the successes in your life, I guarantee almost all of them have been associated with stress.
Right, and when we look at athletes, they are the ones who can handle the stress when it's most important, kind of thing. These are our heroes, right?
Right. Athletes manage stress the successful ones manage stress very well, meaning they know how to keep it within the optimal range in which they perform at their best. Most of us, however, push that limit further out to where both performance and health start to drop off. And so my focus here with my 9 pillars of resilience is a comprehensive model of how to stay within that optimal range, that optimal window where you're performing at your best with stress.
Now, in terms of longevity, is stress a plus, a minus, or it depends on how you handle it in your life?
Yeah. Well, last year I hosted a summit on longevity, and one of the things that we talked about is how stress impacts all the hallmarks of aging. So all of the different factors that contribute to aging, stress has an impact on that. And so you want to be really good at balancing out the 2 branches of your nervous system, the stress branch and the recovery branch. And when you keep those in balance, you have the greatest opportunity for a long health span, meaning functioning at your best to the very end of your life.
So it can have a real impact on your health.
Tremendous impact, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What about the mindset for greater resilience? That's the title of the book. We want these pillars of resilience. What kind of a mindset does someone have to kind of approach in terms of building resilience?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And mental balance and mastery is one of my 9 pillars. And that means that you approach life from a perspective of a growth mindset. And what I mean by that is, if you notice a shortcoming in yourself, oh, I'm not able to do this very well, a growth mindset approaches it from, okay, what do I need to do to improve along that dimension, versus feeling, oh, well, I'm just stuck with this shortcoming. A lot of people, they just assume, for example, if they're anxious, that they're just an anxious person and they can't change from that. But a growth mindset says, okay, what's causing that anxiety or depression or any other disability that you may have, and saying, let me learn how to get better along that line. And a growth mindset is one of the keys to being resilient.
Is that kind of a Stoics, Marcus Aurelius kind of approach you're taking in some ways, or are there other approaches you're taking?
Well, I will say that a key element here is acceptance.
There you go. That's a very Stoic kind of thing.
It's acceptance in particular of the things that you can't control, can't change. There's so many things in our lives in the world today that we don't have any control over, but we get upset about them.
Right.
And it could be on the global level, or it could be just with our friends. In fact, my friend doesn't respond the way I would like him or her to respond. Well, maybe that person never will. But if you get upset about it every time it happens, you're wasting your precious energy that could be sent into, healing your body, for example.
And that's one of those things we talk about in terms of longevity. If you're spending so much time in that space and that worry over things you can't control, that's not a good plan for a long life and a healthy life.
Exactly. I tell people that we have a certain amount of personal energy, right? And you don't want to waste it on anything that's not going to give you something back and in return, because that energy may be taken from, say, energy going to the kidney to purify our blood. So our bodies are always making choices where we send it. I like to say we either can be in defend and protect, that's the stress response, or heal and recover, which is the recovery branch. And if you want to have greater longevity and health span, you have to be putting yourself into that state of recovery as much as possible.
Okay, so for the people who are feeling overwhelmed by stress or they've lived a life like that, some of the steps are, like you say, just kind of figure out a way to get to that place. What are some of the basic things someone can start today that gets them on that path?
Well, I like to say that a lot of our direction of how we live our life is based on the lessons of our childhood. So one of the first things I suggest to people is start noticing how you talk to yourself. If you're super critical toward yourself, if you make a mistake and then you get your hard on yourself, you beat yourself up for
Right,
the
you
mistake.
idiot, you saw that self-talk. What are you doing, you moron, kind of thing. It's a very negative space to be in.
Right. And so those are lessons that we learn in childhood, but now as an adult, you want to start paying attention. And I like to say that there's an optimal way to talk to yourself. And that's coming from a place of love, compassion, acceptance, support, care, and joy. So your audience, compare how you're talking to yourself with what I'm suggesting is the optimal way to talk to yourself. And if you pay attention and you start to say no to any criticism or negativity, you're going in the right direction. That's a first step. The other is find your islands of safety in your day, in your life, when you could say, I could let down my guard, I could relax. And then practice some form of relaxation. On my website, I have a free relaxation exercise people can get and download, and they can use that to practice. It's particularly helpful if someone has difficulty falling asleep.
Tell us that website real quick.
It's drstephensideroff.com.
Okay.
drstephensideroff.com.
Now, the things you're talking about, is that part of that mind-body connection that you talk about in the book?
Yes, so everything is mind-body, right? So, for example, a lot of people get stuck with emotional reactivity. Something little happens and we have this big explosion. Or we get very emotional over issues that we don't need to be. Those are signals that we're carrying emotional unfinished business, feelings that we haven't worked through, we haven't resolved. And so this is how the body affects the mind and the mind affects the body, because when we hold in a feeling, we don't just do it in our heads. Literally, our whole body has to hold those feelings in, and that interferes with the flow of energy that contributes to optimal functioning. So it's very important to notice feelings that haven't been addressed or dealt with and find some way to express and let go of them.
Okay. The book is called The 9 Pillars of Resilience. We didn't get to all the pillars. I would love to talk more. We'll maybe have you back on some other time. Dr. Stephen Sideroff, thank you so much for joining us.
And my pleasure. And the book
is out. It's on Amazon. It's on his website. Everywhere you can find books, you can find The 9 Pillars of Resilience by Dr. Stephen Sideroff. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
You're watching This Day. We'll be right back.